Before we commence, I would like to remind senators that a senator may speak only once at report stage, except the proposer of an amendment who may reply to the discussion on the amendment. And I welcome the Minister to the House. And also at report stage, each amendment must be seconded. And the first amendment is a government amendment, and it's also in the name of Senator Van Turnhout. And I move, and I call on the Minister to speak. Arising out of committee proceedings, 1 and 2 form a composite proposal and may be discussed together by agreement. And Minister. Minister, as this, yeah, I call on the Minister to speak.
If I could just address amendment number 1 first. This is a technical amendment to amend the long title of the bill to provide for the abolition of the defence of reasonable chastisement by way of an amendment to the Non-Fatal Offences Against the Person Act 1997, as proposed in amendment number 2. And as we're taking both together...
Have we any other speaker?
No, both amendments together, so I believe the Minister is speaking on amendment 2 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this amendment proposes to amend the Non-Fatal Offences Against the Person Act 1997 and provide for the abolition of the defence of reasonable chastisement. As I stated at committee stage, the Government is fully committed to the elimination of corporal punishment and to protecting children from violence. This amendment not only abolishes the defence of reasonable chastisement, but will also convey a strong message which will, I hope, lead to a cultural change across society in Ireland that corporal punishment is wrong. At committee stage, Senator Van Turnhout proposed an amendment in this regard, and I requested her to postpone that amendment until report stage so that work already well underway in my department in relation to this issue could be finalised. So I want to thank her for her cooperation in that regard. It is a very important issue, and it's one in which we share an objective. And indeed, many members of the House who spoke on the issue at the committee stage clearly share the same objective. The Senator supports the amendment as brought forward by me today. And if I could just take a moment to mention the late John Boland TD, who is a predecessor of mine and survived by his widow Kay. As Minister for Education back in 1982, on the 26th of January, he brought in a regulation banning corporal punishment in schools. That became effective in February 82. And indeed, I know that today we're joined also by relatives of the late Dr. Cyril Daly, whom I knew very well, and who was a great exponent of the banning of corporal punishment too, when it was neither popular nor profitable indeed, finding himself in conflict with those powers that he held in such dear esteem, actually. The amendment before the House provides for the total abolition of the common law defence of reasonable chastisement. It does not create any new offence, but rather removes something that has its roots in a completely different era and societal context. The measure asserts that there is no circumstance in which it may be seen as in order to hit a vulnerable person, in this case a child. That from a child's perspective there is nothing reasonable about being on the receiving end of corporal punishment. That Irish parents are no less protective of their children, nor less progressive in their parenting practices than those in the other 19 European countries where a statutory ban on corporal punishment is in place. That the government by its laws will protect and vindicate the rights of children, and Ireland is diligent as regards meeting its international obligations in the area of human rights. The measure represents a significant advancement as regards the protection and rights of children. It reinforces the developing impetus in parenting practices in Ireland to use positive discipline strategies in the upbringing of children which reject the use of corporal punishment. The environment in which this amendment can be taken is one that takes account of the children's referendum. The referendum marked a milestone in this country in regard to children. The people voted in favour of children having rights themselves, rights that must be respected. The action we take today is a further step in recognising those rights, making that amendment to our Constitution all the more real. I'd also like to say a word about positive parenting, where we support our children's self-discipline and behaviour by a learning strategy rather than by punishment. Positive parenting is strongly advocated by many parenting support groups and programmes. The Child and Family Agency, TUSLA, published a parenting support strategy which was launched in October 2013. As part of this strategy, the agency has launched a 50 key messages document, which is an evidence-informed guide for parents and practitioners of key messages that are important for raising children. And family resource centres around the country provide positive parenting programmes, which people will find beneficial. And indeed, I have the document here with me, the 50 key messages. I'll conclude by mentioning that in other jurisdictions, where measures in this area have been introduced, research shows that the number of parents who thought it was acceptable to use corporal punishment has fallen and continues to fall. I commend this amendment to the House.
Thank you. Senator Van Turnhout, please.
Minister, you're always welcome to the Seanad, but I have to say you're particularly welcome today. One of my first objectives I set when I became a member of the Seanad in 2011 was for Ireland to repeal the defence of reasonable chastisement. When the Seanad took committee stage of the Children First Bill on 23rd of September, I tabled an amendment, with thanks to the expert help of Dr Fergus Ryan, to the same purpose as the amendment before us today. You said, Minister, if I have my way, we will have this defence of reasonable chastisement removed from the statute book. And here we are today. Minister, I'm extremely aware and thankful for all the work done by you personally, by officials and advisers across government, cooperating and working together to bring about the amendment tabled before us today. I would like to extend my particular thanks to the officials of the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. And I would also like to thank my assistant and researcher, Amy McCardle, for all her work and support. I was also heartened at committee stage to receive cross-party and independent supports, and I want to thank my colleagues for that. On the 23rd of September, I cited a number of international and national experts, and I don't intend to repeat myself today, but ask that my words at committee stage be included in any documenting of how Ireland brought about the abolition of the defence of reasonable chastisement. Over the years, there have been notable voices to the fore calling for Ireland to take this step. Of special note, I must thank the Children's Rights Alliance, in particular Tanya Ward and Maria Corbett, who have been steadfast in their support and ensuring the support of a wide range of children and youth organisations. The ISPCC, driven by the experience of children calling into their childline service, have always prioritised ending a culture of violence against children in Ireland. The Special Rapporteur on Child Protection, Professor Geoffrey Shannon, who has, through his reports, repeatedly called on us as legislators to repeal the defence of reasonable chastisement. For the global leadership they have provided at an international level, I want to thank Marta Santos Pais, Special Representative of the Secretary-General of the UN on Violence Against Children. Peter Newell of the Global Initiative to End All Corporal Punishment of Children. And Ireland's academics who have shone a light on Ireland's international obligations, and in particular, I note the work of Professor Ursula Kilkelly of UCC. I also must thank Jenny and Michael Hassett, my mum and dad. Since the 23rd of September, Minister, I've had a lot of time to reflect and probe why am I so passionate about this issue. And it is, of course, rooted in my own childhood. My memories brought me back to a particular primary school teacher who would, on occasion, whack someone in our class across the ears with a ruler. I remember telling my mum, and she said that if I was ever hit, I was to stand up calmly, walk out of the class, go to the office of the school secretary, and ask for my parents to be called to come and collect me. I was lucky. My parents were ahead of their time. They respected me as an independent rights holder. And I would like to thank my mum for being here with me today to share this occasion. Why do we as a society accept that we even debate if and when it is okay to hit someone? Let alone when that someone is smaller than us and probably doesn't understand why they're being hit. Very often when we discuss the issue of corporal punishment, violence against children, or so-called slapping, you can almost feel an invisible line appear in people's heads about their tolerance level. They say, you know, I'm only talking about a tap, not a thump. A slap, not a belt. A smack, not a whack. And of course, the issue is wrapped up in how we were raised. All too often, the knee-jerk reaction "It never did me any harm" is heard. I would add, it never did you any good either. This invisible line is extremely subjective, and it leaves children vulnerable. When someone hits a child, it's not from a rational place. The decision is made in a heightened emotional state, when we are stressed, when we are tired, and let's face it, when we're least able to engage sound and reasoned judgment. The invisible line gets blurred. In extreme cases, it gets rubbed out completely. One way or another, the existence of the invisible line means children are all too often exposed to an escalation of violence. The excuse, "I got a terrible fright when she ran out on the road, and so I just hit her to show how wrong it is used in relation to children. We all get frights in our life, but my first reaction is not to hit someone. So why do we culturally accept that it's okay to hit when it's a child? A caller to the last word on Today FM summed it up by saying, "My grandmother has Alzheimer's and she is as likely to walk out into traffic or harm herself. Should I use that as a reason to slap her?" Of course, I understand the importance of supporting parents in the vital role they play in their child's life. We need to ensure parents have access to supports and resources when they need them. We know that the majority of parents in Ireland already believe that we have a ban on corporal punishment. However, I know that some parents are anxious about this change in the law, and I'd like to reassure them that we all want the best for their children and for the children of Ireland. And to this end, I'd like to take this moment to thank Laura Hawke of Mummy Pages for their unequivocal support of the amendments before us. I would also like to point to an excellent book for any parents who are anxious, developed by a leading advocate in this area, and he's joined us here today, Paul Gilligan. His book, Raising Emotionally Healthy Children, is a great resource that provides lots of advice and support for parents. By abolishing the defence of reasonable chastisement, we're giving life to the Children's Amendment in our Constitution, which states, "The state recognises and affirms the natural and imprescriptible rights of all children and shall, as far as practicable, by its laws, protect and vindicate those rights." And we know that corporal punishment can cause serious harm to children. We know that it teaches children that violence is an acceptable way of solving conflicts. We know it is ineffective as a means of discipline, and that there's positive ways to teach, correct or discipline children which are better for the child's development and their health. We also know it makes it more difficult to protect children from severe abuse if some forms of violence are legitimate. With this amendment today, we are ensuring that all citizens are equal in the eyes of the law. This ancient defence of reasonable chastisement is not an Irish invention. It came to us from English common law. Through its colonial past, England has been responsible for rooting this legal defence, still to this day, in over 70 countries and territories throughout the world. In England, Wales and Northern Ireland, the reasonable punishment defence still allows parents and some other carers to justify common assault on children. In Scotland, there is another variation, the defence of justifiable assault. In this action being taken today, the government is putting children first and providing leadership that will hopefully give confidence to the government at Westminster, the devolved UK administrations and other countries across the globe to discard these archaic and disreputable defences and give full respect to children's dignity. We will be the 20th EU member state to effectively ban corporal punishment in our jurisdiction, and in doing so, I hope the remaining European governments will follow suit. Irish law is being brought into step with parents, children's rights advocates and international best practice. With this amendment, we have a way to unite and agree that all citizens are equal. There must never be a defence for violence against children. I'm honoured to have championed and secured the effective ban on the physical punishment of children in Ireland.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Layton, please.
I'd like to welcome the Minister back, Mr. Jim Dryden and his senior staff here today. Very welcome indeed. And I'd like to indeed congratulate Senator Jillian from Turnhout on this amendment, which I fully support, and I support it instinctively as a parent myself, but indeed a grandparent now. And without the support of the Minister, this would not be possible, and we accept that. And I very much admire the work you put into it and the research. And as Deputy Leader of the Irish delegation to the Council of Europe, I'm particularly delighted to be associated with it because it's something that the Council of Europe would have been very much to the forefront as well. The whole concept is excellent, and I think to give the leadership to our neighbouring countries is very, very interesting, actually. And the fact that it's allowed in these jurisdictions is something that I think that will now put pressure on those legislators to look at this situation arising from the work that you have done, Senator Turnhout, and the fact and the support you've received. And certainly it proves a point, as ever it was a point proven. Without this House, this amendment would not be here, because nobody moved in the lower house. No TD decided to pursue it as you have pursued it. And if this House had been abolished, so would that amendment. There would be no amendment, and that situation would continue. So I think that's something very worthwhile that the Irish people have recognised. The Minister, in fact, is following in the footsteps of his fellow colleague in North Dublin, John Boland, who brought about the abolition of corporal punishment in schools, which was a major innovation, because every one of us, including the Minister, would recall being at school. And the fear and terror that arose when you could see, and I went to Christian Brothers, and I have a lot of respect for the Christian Brothers. I never would attack them. They gave me a very good start in life, and particularly Brother Dwyer, who gave me great support in school, and I always regarded them very highly. But yes, the Christian Brothers had actually a designed leather strap made for them, designed strap to allow for the maximum torture. The fear of getting 6 of the best, as called, when you see a teacher getting on his tippy toes to inflict the maximum pain, is, to my mind, stays in my memory. Not just for myself, because I wasn't really given that much effect, but I was, to some extent, like every child in the class at some stage was given 6 of the best, to call him. So John Boland, and we recognise his name here today, Minister, as a former colleague of yours, and I presume you know very well in North Dublin. He was the Minister for Education that brought that about. And there was a lot of resistance at the time to that particular area. And looking back, wasn't it so right that that was abolished? That teachers could abuse, physically abuse pupils in front of other pupils in a class. And then looking back to my own, like your own childhood, Senator, and you're very blessed with your mother and father in the way they gave you the support, and that has built you up to give the courage to bring these forward. But I remember going home to a loving mother there. My father worked away a lot, as a stonemason, but she was there with the cup of tea and the biscuits at home, and I look forward to that moment at home. There was never a fear in my home, and I'm very fortunate. And the example that you get, you continue on to your own family. And that's something we never had to resort to. And again, nothing to be boasting about, it's just you're fortunate that this doesn't arise. But just one point, Minister, just that you might just make it. I hope that this does not lead to overuse or abuse of the resources of Garda Síochána. That there will not be overuse of this provision. There will be a reasonable approach, what's called a phasing in approach, in the sense that people will be aware of the situation, they're aware of the law, and that they do not abuse the law, and they cannot resort to this defence if they're actually challenged or brought forward. And if anyone now, from this, when the President signs this bill, if anyone sees a child being abused by a parent or otherwise, they have a right, and will use that right, to say to a member of the Garda Force that they're doing wrong and they're breaking the law. That's very important. And they're the public demonstrations of abuse, which will be quite evident and that you will foresee and you can do something about. Privately, internally, you know, the child can ring the helpline. That's fine. But just be aware. I think the fact that the publicity arising from this, the parents are aware of it. I think it's going to go a long way to comply with it, and that they won't use force against their children or abuse their children or slap their children in any way in that regard. There are many other ways to do it, and every family is different, but I just think it's a very important occasion today, and I'm delighted to be associated with it. And I again like to congratulate Senator Jillian for her initiative in bringing this forward, and particularly Minister and officials, because this, you know, I presume it has been approved by the Cabinet on Tuesday, I think it was, and again the Cabinet needs to be complimented in this particular regard, because this may not be all as popular in some quarters as others, but it doesn't matter about popularity, it's about the right of children. And why pass a referendum, you said, Senator, without bringing this in? It was a contradiction in a sense. We bring in children's rights amendment through the Iraq or to the people to vote for it, and then we don't do something to protect children in their home or otherwise. So again, well done, congratulations, and again thanks to the Minister for going along with this amendment in the House. It shows his independence of thought and his ability as a Minister of Children. I have great faith in your ability, Minister, and now continue your work.
Senator Maloney, please.
Thank you, Alaska Hirlook, and could I just add my voice to welcoming this amendment, to welcome the Minister to the House, and in particularly to thank him for accepting the amendment. He gave us great heart at committee stage when you said if you had your way that the amendment would be accepted, and in particular I spoke at length on this amendment at committee stage, but I again want to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to Senator Jillian Van Turnhout for the work that she put into this. She has been the driving force behind it, and she has also proved, you know, sometimes you hear people saying, oh, you weren't elected to the Senate, you were a nominee, whatever. Today she proves why she was nominated to the Senate. She brought with her expertise. She had worked with the Children's Alliance, Rights Alliance, and God knows she brought it to bear here and today, and her work is seeing fruition here today, and it's a very proud day for me to be part of a government that has accepted this amendment, and I know that I speak on behalf of all the my Labour Party colleagues who are fully supporting this amendment and are delighted that it has been accepted today, and I'm sure our leader, Senator Patrick, will reaffirm that when she speaks later on. You know, over the last few weeks I have discussed this with people. I have met people and have told them what's happening, and I have to say about 99% of the people have been agreeable and have said, well, it's fantastic and well done, and it's a great move by you. Some others show a little bit of reservation about it, but one thing that did keep coming up to people were saying, how are you going to police it? How are you going to know if a child is going to be slapped in the home, and how is that going to be done? But you know, I recall back when the smoking ban came in and people said, you can't police that, that will never be policed. It came in, it worked, and not only that, but because it was a whole cultural change, it stopped smoking in private houses. People have come into my house and said, oh, I'll go sell it out for a fag. I've never stopped them going out because I don't really like it in the house. But there was no obligation on them to leave a private house and go out and smoke. But that's what happened. It seems to be a whole cultural change, people. And I believe that this will be a cultural change, and that it will, you know, reaffirm people's minds on it, and they can concentrate on it. You know, no, we can't slap a child anymore. No matter how gentle, no matter how thing is, you cannot do it. And I think that you know, 99% of the people are honourable and they will abide by this law. And I thank all the people in the gallery who have put a lot of work into this, along with Senator Van Turnhout and with the Minister and his officials. And it's a great day, and a day that I'm very proud to be here in the Senate and show that the Senate was worth keeping.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cullinan, please.
I first of all want to commend the Minister, first and foremost, for bringing forward this bill. I think it is a good day for Ireland, to be honest, in this state, that we have now this bill before us coming to a conclusion. I sat on the Health and Children Oireachtas Committee for the first 2 years I served in the Seanad Minister, and it was one of the issues that you constantly supported and raised, and would have got full cooperation from my party and cross-party support, and from the independent groupings as well. And that, I think, helped us get to a situation where we're at today. I also want to commend Senator Van Turnhout and her very eloquent contribution again to the Seanad today, and the fact that she has put forward these amendments and that you have accepted these amendments today, Minister, is a good day for the Seanad, and it's a good day for governance in this state, because far too often it doesn't happen. And even though reasonable amendments are put forward, because they're put forward by the opposition, they're not accepted. So I'm very pleased on this occasion that these amendments are being accepted. And I think it's important to say as well that we've come an awful long way over the last 30 years, I think, in terms of how we deal with issues of children's rights, and it culminated in the referendum, which again my party supported, and it was fantastic to see that passed, even though there was a lot of people, for all sorts of spurious reasons, didn't support that referendum. I'm proud that we did, and we got that referendum over the line collectively in terms of the opposition and government parties who supported it. But this bill really flows from that in many respects, and it does, in my view, strengthen the safeguarding of children. It puts key elements of the Children First National Guidance for the Protection and Welfare of Children 2011 on a statutory footing, and it introduces mandatory reporting of child protection concerns for key groups of people providing services to children. And as I said, there's been many children in this state, across this island, who have been abused, thousands over the course of the years. Many of them failed by organisations, many of them failed by the state, and we've all learned an awful lot of valuable lessons on how we deal with these issues, and I think that's for the good. And in relation to the amendments that were being put down here today, and the issue of the defence of reasonable chastisement now being taken off the statute books, I think that's very important as well. I think it's a good day for this state. When I won't say what year I was in, because I might give away who the teacher was, but in one of the years when I was in primary school, we also had a teacher that had a long stick that used to use it occasionally to smack all of the children in the class, and it was something. There was only one teacher in the entire class at that time who used the stick, and unfortunately it doesn't happen anymore. And I think that shows, again, we're progressing all the time. In relation to then parents using a smack, or as they would call it, a correction to chastise their child, I have two children. One is 8, one is 4. They can be very trying at times, like anybody's children, and they can try our patience. But I have to say, I've never once ever raised my hand to any of my two children. I never will. But I'm not going to demonise people then who I see who, in their own head, they see it as valid to give a child a slight smack. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong, and I think what we need to do is to deal with it in legislation, to make sure that it isn't right, that we send out a message collectively here in the Oireachtas. We don't tolerate this anymore. And while you in your own head might see this in your head as the right thing to do, or you are not doing any wrong, or that you say this is the way we should chastise your child, it doesn't work. It isn't right. It's not fair. And very often, I've seen it myself, and we all would have seen it in pubs or in outside in the open air, or in events where a parent would give their child a smack, and often the child might be even 2 or 3 years of age. It's very unfair, and it's not the way that we should chastise children when they do wrong. So I personally want to commend you, Minister, for the fact that you've done a huge amount of work on this. It's a personal achievement for yourself, and you should be commended for it, and for the government, and also for all of the senators who have done their own work on it. But specifically, I think we should single out Senator Van Turnhout, and given her own experience and what she has brought to the Seanad in relation to children's rights issues, I think she has done a really good job, and I commend her for that as well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Batchel, please.
I'd like to welcome the Minister to the House, welcome the groups and individuals in the gallery who are here to see this bill go through, and to wholeheartedly welcome these 2 amendments, and just to say well done, Jillian. Congratulations to Senator Van Turnhout, whose tenacity on pursuing this issue has really brought us to this day where we see this historic bill being passed, historic in particular for the reason that it will abolish this ancient and very much outdated defence of reasonable chastisement. I think, Senator Maloney rightly spoke, I think, about the cultural change that will undoubtedly be consolidated and strengthened by the passage of this bill. But, I'm a parent of young children myself as well, and that cultural change has happened. It is really now seen as very much unacceptable to physically chastise a child. I think we have come to realise that there's nothing reasonable about physical chastisement, despite that outdated term that we still use. But it's really good to see the law catching up with this, to see the bill being passed, and to see the Minister accepting these amendments. And I would commend the Minister and his officials for your work in taking these amendments and in getting government support for them. We had this morning in the Oireachtas Justice Committee hearings on the Victims of Crime Bill, and we heard from children's rights groups talking about the protection of the rights of child victims of crime. And I see this bill as very much in keeping with that overall framework of laws in which are providing greater protection for children's rights, for the rights of child victims of crime, and of course the laws that are within the overarching framework of the Children's Rights Amendment, which we passed successfully some years ago and which others have referred to. So I just want to add my own words of support as leader of the Labour group, as Senator Maloney has said, and my own words of commendation and congratulations to Senator Van Turnhout for her work on this, and again to thank you, Minister, for this, and in particular to thank you for using the Seanad in this way. I do think, as others have said, it's a good day for the Seanad too, when we see private members' amendments accepted by government in the Seanad and bills therefore strengthened and improved upon as a result. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Barrett, please.
I'd like to endorse these amendments, welcoming the Minister here. He's always been a great servant of children. The children of Ireland are well served by this Minister. When he was Minister for Health, he took steps to ban smoking by adults where there were children present in cars. He listened most attentively at the committee stage to what people were saying here. And on a sad occasion, I was with him last Thursday, and I think everybody there was moved at that funeral by the 2-, 3- and 5-year-old children following their father's hearse at Garda Golden's funeral. So we knew the Minister's heart was in the right place. I'm delighted he's accepted these amendments. We have in the gallery Dr. Toddy Daly, and the son of Dr. Cyril Daly, and Dr. Daly's wife, Aileen. Cyril Daly campaigned for this for many years. Indeed, the Minister referred to that at the committee stage, and his statement on it was that Cyril Daly, the Irish child, is a human being with human rights, and they have them from today. They're now enforced in legislation. Like the Minister, I remember John Boland, who moved this as Minister for Education back in the 80s against substantial opposition. And Owen Skeffington, one of my predecessors as a Trinity Senator, and I gather the Daly family has correspondence from Senator Skeffington, but the famous story, which I did say the last day as well, that somebody said, I was beaten in school, it never did me any harm, and the Senator's response was, the question is, what did do the harm? So we've moved away from that. Tom Brown school days, the fag system, Victorianism, spare the rod, spoil the child. And I think since people like Montessori, we now see children are interesting, fascinating, inspiring, stimulating. Why on earth would we want to impose any form of physical punishment on them? Senator Maloney was deeply moving the last day. She always is in support of Senator Van Turnhout on these issues. And Senator Layton said it would be a suitable way to celebrate what we were trying to do for the centenary of 1916. And this is one of the best suggestions that, yes, children will be cherished as in the democratic programme of that all. So this is a huge day, I think, for human rights in this country. We were all children once, therefore the rights of everybody are protected by this. So in its way, it's as big a celebration as the one we were celebrating last night. Well, there were the celebrations in Dublin Castle on May 23rd. This one is even bigger when you think of the number of people all into the future who will benefit from what the Minister is doing here today. And I commend you very strongly, Minister, for making this change, and for remembering reading notes in the Irish Medical Times from Dr. Daly, and knowing him personally as a friend, and knowing John Boland as a friend, because these friendships, I think, do matter in these matters. And whose children should be punished? Why was that power given to big people to beat small people? We've moved away from all of that now, and this is a great day for Seanad and a great day for the children of this country, that this Minister, with the unanimous support of the House, is supporting these amendments.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Senator Henry, please.
Just to say, I too want to congratulate Senator Jillian Van Turnhout, and not just for her contribution today, but her several contributions over the last 4.5 years since she came into this House. And indeed before that, before even becoming a member of this House, Jillian is absolutely committed to the welfare of children in this country. And it's a pleasure to know you, Jillian. I do want to sincerely congratulate you on everything you've done so far, and I've no doubt for many years to come that you will continue to support children. And to you, Minister, just to thank you so much for accepting the amendments, and just to say that you're doing a fantastic job, and I really do congratulate you on your commitment to children, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Minister.
Now, call on the Minister now to reply. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just to this section, just to make a few comments, I mean, because some concerns were raised by Senator Layden in relation to the effect on Garda resources. Tusla will still be the first port of call, and there's no new offence created, so I believe matters will be taken in the way that they've always been taken very seriously by Tusla if there are allegations of and reports of any breach of this. Can I just say that I believe it is progressive legislation, and we've had a number of progressive pieces of legislation over the last 3 or 4 years, and I welcome them all. Even when we were in the darkest of times financially, we have not forgotten about the things that are important in life and the values that we have as a people. I'd like to acknowledge, as Jillian has done, the support from the Children's Rights Alliance and Tanya Ward, who's here with us today, and indeed the great work done by Jeffrey Shannon as Special Rapporteur in this area, and the ISPCC, and of course my own officials in the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. And I want to acknowledge the presence here of Kay Boland, John Boland's widow, who would have been very supportive of John when others have said that he was up against a degree of resistance back in 1982. And I'd like to thank all the senators, and in particular I'd like to thank Jillian Van Turnhout for her persistence and support. It's not the first bill that I've been involved in that she's been involved in. So I think that both in your time as NGO and now here in the Seanad, you have done a wonder of work for children, and I congratulate you on that. So again, to acknowledge the presence here too of the widow and children of Dr. Cyril Daly, who was a great champion of this cause as well. And just to thank everyone for their support, and we all know in our hearts Ireland will be a better place for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Minister.